The Galactic Alliance had conquered fear itself. For 3 millennia, their mighty fleets had swept across star systems, bringing order to chaos, civilization to barbarism, and logic to madness. The crystalline spires of Capital Prime pierced the atmosphere like needles of pure light, each one a testament to technological supremacy that had never known defeat. Admiral Vexillion Tulix stood before the holographic display in the Strategic Command Center, his 6 arms folded in contemplation. The Hexapodian race had evolved beyond the need for emotional weakness, their neural implants ensuring perfect rational calculation in every decision. Behind him, Chief of Staff General Elena Vax studied the incoming reports with the intensity of a computer parsing data. "Admiral," she said, her mechanical voice devoid of inflection, "we have received a priority alpha transmission from Sector 7G, Source Earth System." Tulix's primary eyes flickered with interest. Earth was a backwater planet, recently incorporated into the Alliance, after a laughably brief resistance campaign. Its inhabitants were primitive bipeds who had barely mastered space travel. "Display the transmission." The hologram shifted to show a weathered human face, scarred and sunbeaten. The transmission crackled with interference. "This is General Marcus Webb, formerly of the United Earth Defense Force. I'm broadcasting from Underground Bunker 47 Delta. The situation here has deteriorated beyond all rational comprehension. They've created something that violates every principle of military doctrine. I'm attaching tactical data, but I warn you, nothing in your databases will prepare you for what these lunatics have unleashed." The transmission cut to static. Elena's cybernetic implants whirred as she processed the attached files. "Admiral, the tactical data is unprecedented. According to these reports, a single human unit designated Phidians has neutralized 3 Alliance scout vessels using what appear to be modified recreational vehicles and biological organisms." Tulix's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Impossible! Run a diagnostic on the data integrity." "Multiple diagnostics complete, sir. All data appears authentic." The Admiral's amusement faded. He activated the fleet-wide communications array. "This is Admiral Tulix to all Alliance vessels in the Sol system. We have reports of irregular resistance activity on Earth. Redirect course to Florida Peninsula, coordinates transmitted. Prepare for pacification protocols." Within hours, the Alliance's most formidable battle fleet assembled in Earth's orbit. 73 ships of the line, each one capable of sterilizing a continent. The flagship, Eternal Dominion, bristled with weapons that could crack planets. This would be over before it began. Lieutenant General Renzi materialized on the bridge through quantum teleportation, his crystalline race's body reflecting the bridge lights like a prism. "Admiral, our advanced scouts have made contact with human forces. The results are unsettling." "Elaborate." Renzi's crystalline form dimmed. "Scout Wing Alpha encountered what humans call airboats, primitive watercraft that somehow achieved atmospheric flight. They were crewed by bipeds wearing clothing made from reptilian hide and wielding what appeared to be fermented plant matter in pressurized containers." "And?" "The airboats destroyed 3 of our fighters, sir, using explosive citrus fruits." The bridge fell silent. Even the mechanical hum of the ship's systems seemed to pause in disbelief. Elena stepped forward. "Sir, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. The tactical data suggests these humans employ strategies that fall outside all known military parameters." Tulix's 6 arms gestured dismissively. "Nonsense. Deploy the Mechanized Infantry Division. If these primitives want to play war with fruit, we'll show them the meaning of superior firepower." The Mechanized Infantry Division was the pride of the Alliance military. 1,000 biomechanical soldiers, each standing 12 feet tall, armed with plasma rifles capable of melting through starship hulls. They descended to the surface in drop pods, their targeting systems locked onto the human fortifications, in what their maps labeled as Gatorland. Commander Zekthor led the assault personally, his enhanced sensors detecting human biosignatures scattered throughout the swampy terrain. The tactical display showed enemy positions marked in red, seemingly random placements that made no strategic sense. Division advance on my signal. Remember, these are primitive bipeds with inferior technology. This will be a simple mop-up operation. The mechanized units marched forward through the wetlands, their heavy footsteps crushing the soft earth. Everything proceeded according to protocol, until the first unit stepped on what appeared to be a log. The log was not a log. 16 feet of American alligator erupted from the water, its jaws clamping down on the soldier's leg, with a force that registered off the charts on their armor sensors. But this was no ordinary gator. Cobbled across its hide were metal plates held in place with what appeared to be industrial adhesive tape, and its eyes glowed with an unsettling intelligence. Before Commander Zekthor could react, the swamp exploded into chaos. Gators emerged from every direction, but these were like nothing in the Alliance xenobiology databases. Some wore what appeared to be improvised armor, made from street signs and shopping cart metal. Others had been outfitted with small rockets strapped to their backs. One particularly large specimen had a human riding on its head, wielding what looked like a modified leaf blower that shot flaming projectiles. "Command, we need backup," Zekthor screamed into his communicator as his soldiers were systematically dismantled by a cavalry charge of weaponized reptiles. "The enemy is using... I don't know what the hell they're using." From the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Tulix watched the tactical display in growing horror. Red dots representing his soldiers winked out one by one, replaced by chaotic movement patterns that defied all logic. Sir, Yelena reported, her voice betraying the first hint of emotion he'd ever heard from her. "Our ground forces are reporting enemy combatants riding on the backs of indigenous reptiles. They're using improvised weapons including, but not limited to, pressurized condiment dispensers, modified pool equipment, and what appears to be elastic confectionery formed into projectile launchers." "Impossible." "Also, sir, several of our soldiers have been incapacitated by what humans call Tabasco grenades, pressurized containers of capsaicin-based liquid that cause severe irritation to our sensory organs." On the surface, the human, known as Commander Jake, Gator King, Burgard, whooped with primitive joy as he steered his armored alligator through the chaos. The beast beneath him, whom he'd named Democracy, wore a harness made from bungee cords and mounted with a beer cooler retrofitted as a grenade launcher. "Come on, you alien sons of bitches," Burgard hollered, firing another salvo of Tabasco grenades at the retreating mechanized soldiers. "Welcome to Florida." Behind him, his Lieutenant Tammy Lynn Dixie charged forward on her own gator mount, this one equipped with pool noodles that had been weaponized into tasers. "Burgard, we got more of 'em coming in from the east. Then we give 'em the full Gatorland treatment." The full Gatorland treatment involved tactics that no military academy in the galaxy had ever conceived. Humans emerged from concealment, wearing camouflage made from palmetto fronds, and beer cans wielding weapons that violated every principle of engineering. They rode jet skis through shallow water at impossible speeds, launching themselves into the air to attack flying vehicles. They used fishing nets to entangle hover tanks. They weaponized sunscreen into chemical irritants. One particularly ingenious human, named Cletus McElroy, had modified his riding lawnmower into what he called the Mulch Master 3000, complete with rotating blades, rocket engines, and a cooler full of what the Alliance eventually identified as fermented fruit beverages. He drove it straight into a formation of Alliance hoverbikes, cackling as he chopped through their anti-gravity generators with his spinning blades. Admiral Tulix watched his invasion force fall apart with growing panic. His tactical computers couldn't process the chaos. Every algorithm designed to predict enemy behavior crashed when fed data about humans attacking starships with modified golf carts and trained gators. Admiral General Renzi said, his crystalline form now dull with stress, "Recommend immediate withdrawal. These humans fight without logic, without reason. Our systems can't calculate responses to their actions because their actions have no basis in rational thought. Negative, Tulix snarled. Deploy the Orbital Strike Division. Level the entire peninsula if necessary. The Orbital Strike Division consisted of the Alliance's most powerful energy weapons, capable of surgical strikes from space. Tulix personally aimed the targeting system at the largest concentration of human forces, centered around what their maps called Swamp Nexus. The energy beam lanced down from space, a pillar of pure destructive force that should have vaporized everything in a 5-mile radius. Instead, it struck what appeared to be a massive mirror, made from sheet metal, and boat windshields, carefully angled to reflect the beam back at the Alliance fleet. The reflected orbital strike hit the Eternal Dominion, amidships overloading its shields and sending the massive vessel spinning. Emergency klaxons wailed as secondary explosions rippled through the ship's hull. How did they know? Tulix demanded, his 6 arms gesticulating wildly. How did primitive bipeds predict and counter an orbital strike? On the surface, Dr. Raylene Wexler lowered her binoculars and grinned. The former NASA engineer had spent 3 days calculating the optimal angles for the mirror array using high school physics and a lot of moonshine. Because, honey, she muttered to herself, you ain't in space anymore. You're in Florida now. The battle intensified. Alliance forces attempted to establish a perimeter, but every position they secured was immediately flanked by humans using unconventional routes. They rode manatees through underwater passages, flew on improvised gliders made from beach umbrellas and leaf blowers, and tunneled through the swamp using modified pool pumps. Elena found herself restructuring her entire understanding of warfare. Admiral, I'm seeing reports of humans using trained marine life as communication systems. They're apparently coordinating attacks through dolphin sonar networks. That's impossible. Dolphins aren't weapons. These humans seem unaware of what's possible, sir. That appears to be their greatest tactical advantage. The climactic moment came when Admiral Tulix made the fateful decision to lead the assault personally. He descended to the surface in his command walker, a 30-foot-tall mech, equipped with enough firepower to flatten a city block. His target, Commander Burgard, and his gator-mounted irregulars, who had been identified as the primary source of the chaos. The two commanders met in a clearing deep in the heart of Swamp Nexus. Tulix's mech towered over Burgard, and his mount weapon systems locked and ready to fire. Surrender, human. Tulix broadcast through external speakers. You have witnessed the futility of resistance against the Alliance. Burgard spat into the swamp water and scratched democracy behind the eyes. Well, hell, alien man, you sure put on a fine light show. But see, here's the thing about us Florida folks, we ain't exactly what you'd call reasonable people. You have no chance of victory. My systems cannot be defeated by your primitive weapons. Well, now I reckon that's where you're wrong. Burgard reached into his cooler and pulled out what looked like a normal bottle of hot sauce. You see this? Here's my great-granddaddy's secret recipe. Carolina Reaper extract ghost pepper oil, and a little something we call Florida water. You know what that is, Admiral? Tulix's sensors analyzed the substance and recoiled. The chemical composition was beyond their understanding. It shouldn't exist, according to known chemistry. It's swamp water, alien boy. And not just any swamp water. This here's from the deepest, darkest hole in the Everglades, where the gators go to die, and the water's so thick you need a machete to drink it. We've been brewing this stuff for generations. Before Tulix could react, Burgard unscrewed the cap and simply poured the contents over Democracy's head. The gator's eyes blazed with an intensity that registered as dangerous on every sensor in Tulix's mech. Democracy charged. The battle between Admiral Tulix's advanced war mech and Commander Burgard's chemically enhanced alligator became the stuff of legend. Tulix fired every weapon in his arsenal: plasma cannons, missile batteries, energy swords, but Democracy moved with inhuman speed and agility, weaving between the attacks with predatory grace. Burgard whooped and hollered, steering the gator with nothing more than beer-soaked reins and pure Florida spirit. Come on, Democracy, show this tin can how we do things in the swamp. The gator leaped impossible distances, its jaw clamping down on the mech's leg with enough force to crumple titanium alloy. Tulix's sophisticated targeting systems couldn't track the creature's erratic movements. It fought with the same chaotic unpredictability as its human rider. In desperation, Tulix activated his mech's self-destruct sequence. If he was going down, he'd take this insane human and his impossible pet with him. But as the countdown reached 0, democracy performed the most unlikely maneuver in the history of warfare. The gator barrel rolled. The explosion that should have vaporized them instead propelled democracy and Beauregard clear of the blast radius, sending them soaring through the air in a perfect arc that ended with them landing safely in a nearby retention pond. Tulix's mech, meanwhile, toppled backward into the swamp, its systems failing one by one, as Florida water seeped into every circuit and joint. The Alliance fleet watched in stunned silence as their admiral's command walker disappeared beneath the murky waters. The tactical display showed chaos spreading across their entire invasion force as human defenders pressed their advantage. General Renzi eventually took command, ordering a full retreat. As Alliance ships lifted off from Earth's surface, many carrying soldiers traumatized by encounters with weaponized lawn equipment and assault gators, emergency sessions convened across the galaxy. The Galactic Council met in unprecedented emergency session on Capital Prime. Representatives from thousands of species gathered to discuss the Earth problem. The debates raged for days. These humans represent a clear and present danger to galactic stability, argued the Zephyrian ambassador, his energy field flickering with agitation. They have proven that superior technology means nothing against sufficient insanity. The reports speak for themselves, added the Martellian delegate consulting her datapad. Human forces defeated an entire Alliance battle group using improvised weapons, trained wildlife, and tactics that our computers literally cannot process. Chief Administrator Vexthul, an ancient being whose species had guided galactic politics for millennia, raised a massive hand for silence. The question before us is simple. How do we contain a species that fights without logic, plans without strategy, and wins without reason? Dr. Elena Vax, recently promoted after her service during the Earth campaign, stood to address the Council. Her experiences had changed her in ways she was still trying to understand. Honored delegates, I spent weeks analyzing human tactics. Their success doesn't come from superior technology or strategic brilliance. It comes from their willingness to try things that shouldn't work. They adapt faster than our computers can calculate responses. They use materials and methods that exist outside our understanding of proper warfare. Are you suggesting we accommodate their insanity? Demanded the hegemony representative. I'm suggesting, Elena continued, that we recognize our limitations. We've spent millennia perfecting the science of war. These humans have perfected the art of chaos. And as we've learned, chaos is a remarkably effective weapon against order. The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. By unanimous vote, the Galactic Council passed Resolution 2847-AB, officially known as the Gatorland Accords. Earth would be declared a quarantine zone. No Alliance vessels would approach within 3 light-years of the Sol system without express Council permission. Humans would be granted autonomy over their planet and local space, but any attempt to spread their tactical methodology to other worlds would result in immediate and overwhelming retaliation. A monument was erected on Capital Prime, displaying a holographic image of an Earth alligator alongside the inscription, "Here lies the conviction that the universe follows logical rules." Back on Earth, Commander Beauregard stood at the edge of the swamp nexus, watching the last Alliance ships disappear into the stars. Democracy lay beside him, contentedly munching on what appeared to be pieces of starship hull that had washed ashore. "Well, girl," he said, scratching the gator behind her armored head, "reckon we showed them aliens what happens when you mess with Florida." Tammy Lynn approached, dragging behind her what looked like an Alliance combat helmet filled with creek water and small fish. "Beauregard, you think they'll be back?" "Oh, I doubt it. See, that's the thing about bullies, they're real brave until someone hits back. And we hit back harder than a hurricane in a trailer park. As if to punctuate his statement, Democracy burped up what appeared to be a piece of advanced circuitry, still blinking with alien symbols. Sides, Burgard continued, we got ourselves a nice little setup here. No more alliance taxes, no more galactic regulations. Just us, the swamp, and all the duct tape we can steal from abandoned hardware stores. Word of the Gatorland Accords spread throughout the galaxy. Other species watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as humanity settled into their new role as the galaxy's most feared quarantine zone. Scientists from across the galaxy filed requests to study human military tactics, only to have their applications denied by the Council. Under no circumstances, read the standard response, will we allow the spread of human tactical methodology to other species. The containment of chaos-based warfare is essential to galactic stability. Some species attempted to study humans from afar, analyzing captured footage of the battles. The results were invariably the same: military computers would crash, strategy programs would enter infinite loops, and several AI systems reportedly developed what could only be described as nervous breakdowns. Admiral Tulix, rescued from the swamp after 3 days of hiding in a hollow log, never fully recovered from his experience. He spent his retirement on a peaceful agricultural planet, tending to a small garden, and occasionally muttering about those damned gators to anyone who would listen. Years passed. The quarantine held. Earth became a sort of galactic legend, the one planet that had defeated the Alliance not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through sheer, unfiltered chaos. Tour ships would occasionally approach the edge of the solar system, their passengers paying premium prices to see the forbidden world. Ladies and gentlemen, tour guides would announce, on your left, you can see the Sol system, home to the only species in galactic history to weaponize citrus fruit and achieve tactical victory through the strategic deployment of aquatic reptiles. The humans, for their part, seemed content with their isolation. They had turned Florida into a fortress state with other human nations contributing resources and personnel to maintain the Gator Defense Force. Earth's military academies now taught courses in applied chaos theory and improvised weapon systems. Though the courses were strictly theoretical, actual human tactics remained classified at the highest levels. Former Alliance soldiers who had survived the Earth campaign became something of a support group, meeting regularly to discuss their experiences and help each other cope with what therapists termed Florida-related combat stress disorder. The worst part, one veteran would typically share, wasn't the gators. It was watching a human take down our hover tank with a fishing net and a bottle of hot sauce. It broke something fundamental in how I see the universe. In the deeper reaches of space, other powers took notice. The hegemony, the Alliance's ancient rivals, sent probes toward Earth to study human tactics. The probes never returned, though debris occasionally showed up on alien worlds, with large bite marks and traces of a substance that analysis identified as spicy mayonnaise. The Crystalline Confederation, ever cautious, established an observation post at the edge of the galaxy to monitor any signs of human expansion. Their reports grew increasingly erratic over time. Day 847 detected human space probe, carrying what appears to be a message of friendship. Probe is decorated with colorful fabric and crude drawings of reptiles. Day 932. Human probe has attracted several indigenous space creatures. They appear to be feeding them. Day 115. Human probe has established what can only be described as a space trailer park in local asteroid field. Recommend immediate withdrawal to safer distance. The galaxy had learned its lesson. You don't mess with humanity, not because they were the strongest, or the smartest, or the most technologically advanced. You don't mess with them because they were the only species capable of turning anything, literally, anything, into a weapon. And they did it with a smile on their faces and a beer in their hands. As Commander Borgard liked to say, we didn't win because we were better. We won because we're too stupid to know when we're supposed to lose. And in the end, perhaps that was the most terrifying thing of all, to a galaxy built on logic and order and predictable patterns. Here was a species that thrived on chaos, that found joy in the impossible, and that treated the laws of physics as more of a suggestion than a rule. The Gatorland Accord stood as a monument to that chaos, a formal acknowledgement that sometimes the universe's greatest force isn't technology or wisdom or power. Sometimes it's simply the willingness to strap a rocket to an alligator and see what happens. And in that recognition lay perhaps the only wisdom the galaxy had gained from its encounter with humanity. Never ever underestimate the power of people who have nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The story of the Gatorland War became required reading in military academies across the galaxy, not as a tactical manual, but as a cautionary tale. The final lesson was always the same. When facing humans, remember, they don't follow the rules because they don't know there are rules. And that's exactly what makes them dangerous. Years later, when asked about the secret to their success, the remaining veterans of the Gatorland War would just smile, crack open a beer, and point toward the swamp where democracy still ruled supreme, wearing her battle scars like medals, and occasionally belching up pieces of alien technology. "You want to know our secret," they'd say. "We didn't have a plan. We just knew we weren't going to let some aliens come down here and tell us how to live. The rest, well, the rest was just Florida being Florida." And somewhere in the vast galaxy, on a monitoring station at the edge of known space, alien scientists continued to study Earth from afar, trying to understand how a species could be simultaneously so primitive and so impossibly effective. They never figured it out. That was probably for the best. The universe was a big, strange place full of wonders beyond imagination and horrors beyond description. But nothing in all that vastness had prepared it for Florida Man, equipped with a weaponized gator. And that, as Commander Burgard would say with a grin, was exactly the point.